Good morning. I'm sorry we had this extra added silliness this morning. We didn't get a chance to formally introduce you at the beginning. This is Dr. Michael Kozar. I've known him for about 12 years. He's been public sector psychiatrist in various functions in Sonoma County, and now he's like the chief of mental health services in Sonoma County, and he's a Ivy League grad from the University of Pennsylvania, and so he's going to tell us about mental health in Sonoma County, and clearly so some lacking here today.
So, to welcome him, we're going to sing him up onto the podium. How do you do, honored speaker? How do you do? Is there anything that we can do for you? Thanks for coming here today. We are with you all the way. How do you do, honored speaker? How do you do? The floor is yours. I don't know if I can follow. Can y'all? Yeah. So Michael Kozar, thank you so much for. I'm actually the medical director for Sonoma County Behavioral Health. And again, I want to thank you for having me here today. I don't know, we have about 20 minutes, is that right? 25. So I think I was asked here today to talk a little bit about mental health services in Sonoma County, which I'm more than happy to do, but I'd also like to leave as much time as possible for questions. So I'm going to try to leave my remarks to just a few minutes, if that's possible. So we'll talk a little bit about Sonoma County Behavioral Health, and who we are, what we do. We actually do a whole lot of different things. I could spend a lot of time talking about all those things, but I think today I'm just going to give you a little window into two of the things that we do, which is to run the mental health plan of Sonoma County, and then I want to talk a little bit about LPS, if you've ever heard those two initials before, LPS. There should be some handouts as well that has a lot more information, a kind of overview of Sonoma County Behavioral Health, and also a little bit more about some of the specific things that we're doing in West County at Sonoma. So just what is Sonoma County Behavioral Health? And I think the most general thing to say is that we are a division in the Department of Health Services for Sonoma County, where we have about 300 workers. We are physically located throughout the county, but our main headquarters has been up on Chenate Road, across the street from the old Sutter Community Hospital and Sutter Hospital. We also have a lot of outposts throughout the county. We have community mental health centers in Burnville and Petaluma and Cloverdale and out in Sonoma. And one thing that we probably mentioned that folks might have heard about is that we are anticipating a big move. So we're going to centralize our county mental health services in a location in southwest Santa Rosa, off Sebastopol Road, and in a corporate park area called the Lakes. And we've already started to move some of our operations over there. So psychiatric emergency services, which is now called the Crisis Stabilization Unit, is there, and our access is there. And pretty soon we're going to be moving our drug and alcohol services there. And then over the next couple years, we're going to try to migrate everything that's over in the Chenate campus over to the Lakes. Let me just talk a little bit about what it means to say that we're the County Mental Health Plan. And the County Mental Health Plan is actually a fairly interesting historical thing. It exists throughout California. County mental health plans exist throughout California. And each county basically has one. And Sonoma County Behavioral Health runs the County Mental Health Plan. And most of you probably heard about Medicaid expansion, right? Because it's kind of been in the news lately. So long before the Affordable Care Act, there was actually a recognition that Medicaid, or as we call it, Medi-Cal in California, didn't provide enough of the services that chronic mentally ill need. So Medicaid has always been fairly good at reimbursing doctors for fee-for-service office-based visits, but it hasn't covered a lot of other services that chronic mentally ill folks need, like care coordination and support with housing, lots of other things. So really back in the probably early 90s, there was a recognition that in California we needed to do something more. And that led to a couple things happening. One was the big realignment bill that came out in 1991, where they siphoned service funding for mental health services throughout the state through a number of different taxes that existed. And then in mid-1990s, the really big thing happened, which was the waiver that we got from the feds to basically say that we're going to take everyone who meets certain criteria for specialized mental health services, we're going to take all those folks and put them into specialized mental health plans throughout the state. And that happened in 1995, and that led to the creation of county-run mental health plans. And so Sonoma County Behavioral Health is the county mental health plan of Sonoma. What it means to say a county mental health plan is that we provide services to really the most severely impaired, chronic mentally ill folks in the county. It doesn't mean that everyone who has a mental health issue is going to be given direct services through the county, although we do provide something called access, where we will evaluate folks and decide whether they meet the criteria for services through the county, or they would get more appropriate care through other methods, or other means like community medical centers like West County Health Services or Santa Rosa Community Health Services. So the county mental health plan does provide a lot of services, and we do a lot of direct services for folks at all ages. We do a lot of community outreach to help individuals function as best they can in the community. We handle crisis stabilization and referrals to hospitals. And we do a lot with the legal aspects of mental health. And that brings me to something else that I want to talk to you all about, which is what LPS is. So LPS stands for Manitoulin, Petrus, and Short, which were the names of three legislators that essentially wrote the mental health code in the late 1960s. And it's the duty of Sonoma County Behavioral Health to basically be the stewards of how LPS is implemented across our county. And LPS basically has a lot to do with the laws that relate to commitments, so civil commitments or commitments for involuntary detention or involuntary services, which is a pretty heavy, weighty thing, and something that we take a lot of effort to make sure it's done properly. So LPS covers a number of things that you may have heard about. One of them is the 5150s, which are the 72-hour holds, which are in place throughout the state of California to allow folks who have sort of a mental health crisis, have a period of evaluation and assessment. And so we run the whole system by which we train folks throughout the county as to how to utilize 5150s. We oversee all 5150s that are written and make sure that they're being done appropriately. LPS also covers longer-term holds, such as 14-day holds, and conservatorships, which are things that sometimes are necessary to help chronic mentally ill folks who may need more of a safety net in terms of services and occasionally hospitalization. So anyway, I have a tendency to ramble quite a bit, and mental health is usually something that raises a lot of questions, and I'm really eager to hear from you all as to anything that you would like me to talk about in greater depth, or I can just continue to. Yes?
Can you talk about the relationship between your services and law enforcement in the county, both the sheriff's office and local police jurisdictions? How do you guys help each other?
That's an excellent question. So let me just talk about one of the big topics related to that question, which is our mental health services relationship to Sonoma County Jail, because that's been in the news a bit. Really, for 30 years, we provided mental health services within the jail. So we operated with the sheriff's detention division. And that contract actually just came to an end. So beginning July 1st, the county turned over the role of mental health services in the jail to a private company called CFMG, which is now taking that role on. So we're still very heavily involved in the jail folks in terms of helping individuals who are very mentally ill and needing further services, helping those folks get linked to services when they're out of custody, but we're not actually running direct mental health services in the jail any longer. But in the community, we have a very active engagement with the Sheriff's Department and police departments throughout the county, often in and around the scenario of individuals being placed on 5150s. So a lot of the 5150s in the county are actually placed by law enforcement officers. And then the next step is to get those individuals to where they need to be to get appropriate health care, either to a medical emergency room for medical screening or directly to our crisis services, what we call the Crisis Stabilization Unit. So we do quite a lot of discourse with law enforcement around the use of 5150s, the appropriate use of 5150s, how to best transport individuals. And one of the programs that we're particularly invested in Sonoma County Behavioral Health is also something called the MST program, which is the Mobile Support Team. And the Mobile Support Team is a group of mental health specialists who are available to go out with the Sheriff's Department to help diffuse crisis situations. It's been a very, very successful program, and we're trying to expand the number of personnel in that program so we can extend its geographic sweep. But currently, MST is mainly operating along the 101 corridor. And so when the Sheriff's Department goes out to some of the outlying areas, like in the far west county or other areas far away from the corridor, we don't have the MST quite yet ready to be able to go out with those officers, but we're trying to expand that service. So MST is a very big thing that we do. The other thing I want to mention is something called CIT, which is Crisis Intervention Training. So we in Sonoma County Behavioral Health sponsor mental health training for all law enforcement officers, Sheriff's Department, all the police forces. Our goal is to try to get every law enforcement officer eventually CIT trained. But CIT training basically just goes over some of the basic principles of how to relate to individuals in crisis and the resources that are out there, how to make a crisis situation hopefully end up in a peaceful, safe way for everyone.
Question? Yeah.
Yes?
Well, in your time over the last decades, have you discerned an increase in the population of people needing help, and if so, what do you think is behind that? Or has it been a pretty stable percentage of the population that's needing for services?
That's also a great question. I'm sure there's some statistics that could answer that question scientifically, which I don't have at my disposal, but anecdotally. I would say yes to your question. Chronic mentally ill folks are, as we would imagine, vulnerable in certain ways. And I think we're also all aware of the challenges with housing in Sonoma County, which is a multifaceted challenge. But I think as housing becomes increasingly more difficult to access, individuals who are most vulnerable in terms of the ability to afford the rents and find appropriate locations, they're the first individuals to become homeless. So there's always been a sort of intimate link between homelessness and mental illness. And while it's a question as to how many homeless are in the county and whether that number is going up or down, I think the latest homeless count indicates it's going down. My personal sense is that it's become a more visible issue in a lot of areas throughout the county, and that has a lot to do with housing. But I think also it raises the issue of how can we extend as much mental health support for folks who are experiencing homelessness. So One of the exciting developments recently was there's something called whole person care, which is a federal initiated program to try to extend as much mental health and social services to the most vulnerable people in our society. And Sonoma County put in a grant for that funding through the feds, and that was awarded. We just heard about it at the beginning of July. So whole person care will hopefully bring a whole new cadre of social workers and nurses out to the community health centers to provide more linkage, more direct services. But again, to answer your question, do I see an increase in need? I do, from the standpoint of what I mentioned in terms of the homelessness, but I also see it from the standpoint of a more positive, empowering perspective, which is that thanks to the Affordable Care Act and Medicaid expansion, we also have a whole lot more people in our health system who have the insurance and have the means to get health care. So it's been a great thing to see an expansion in the number of beneficiaries and folks who could get services, which of course puts some strain and stress on our healthcare system in terms of the infrastructure to be able to provide services to all those people. But I think that it just as I'm looking at things historically over the past 12 years that I've been in the county, it's a whole different world now in terms of the array of services, particularly through the community health centers that are available to serve the mentally ill. Yes.
My question has to do with the permanently mentally ill and the closure of the hospital in Glenelg and Eldridge. It's on the books to close, I think, next year. Are you aware of that? Or?
Eldridge.
Well, it's not.
No, development.
It's not a developmental center.
Yes.
And I'm just wondering, is there a plan for those folks who, they don't have an option to improve with a trained person in a private home or that kind of thing? What really is going to happen to that population?
Great question. And I get involved in cases of individuals in that predicament all the time. I know there's a lot of different proposals out there, but the real fundamental issue is for long-term housing for folks that require, fairly heavy services. And I could expand that question to also embrace other pockets of our population that also require that kind of resource, like the aging folks with cognitive impairment and individuals who are going to require a lot of residential treatment. I don't have an easy answer to that. I know it's a problem, and I know that somehow we need waivers to be able to get more federal reimbursement for services and for housing infrastructure for those folks. Regional centers are historically the agencies that have been tasked with providing care and support for the developmentally delayed. So the North Bay Regional Centers are outposts for that. And I know that they are heavily strapped for available resources for folks that need crisis and long-term housing. All I can say is we have to be tireless advocates here and hope that the worst case scenarios do not happen, which is that these individuals end up being incarcerated. Because no one wants to see that happen, even though regrettably that sometimes is the way that some of the most impaired individuals get into services, and we don't want to see that kind of circularity. So I don't have an easy answer, but I know it's something that we're definitely looking at and that we're heavily invested in, and we just, from an advocacy standpoint, need to try to get more resources flowing into the regional centers. That's a way of answering your question without answering your question.
Over here.
Okay. Yes.
When the Department of Health Services and the Sheriff's Department were co-opted the services within the jail, there was at least a potential for a continuum of care when those folks were released from custody. Bringing in a private firm appears to me to be a separation of that what plans may be in place? And I realize you're only 3 weeks into this new world. What plans are there in place to provide care for those who are released from custody but still need some sort of mental health care?
Thank you for that great question. So hopefully we'll have some role with quality assurance in terms of seeing what's happening to individuals. We still have a discharge planner that worked for the county who's working in the jail. We're extending 5150 training to the CFMG clinicians so that they understand the resources. And I think we're just going to try to maintain an active dialogue so that folks who may need to be placed on holds or who may need further intensive services will get them. The question that you're posing is one that is as pertinent now as it has been for all the decades that we were running jail mental health services, which is where are there locations that provide the appropriate mental health services for individuals who are incarcerated, who are often whose situations are very difficult to handle in our usual customary environments. Individuals who may be regrettably agitated or hostile or have very heavy needs. And this is a terrifically tough problem throughout the state that we do not have the beds available for incarcerated individuals who have committed serious crimes who need mental health services. The state hospital system is really no solution at all. We utilize the state hospital often on a short-term basis just for restoration of capacity, but even getting someone to the state hospital can take many, many months. And then for those folks who actually can't be restored, whether they get to stay on in the state hospitals indefinitely is a very, very tough thing given the incredible expense of that kind of resource. So everyone's aware of this problem. There are civil rights issues that are highly relevant to this issue. Somehow as a society, we need to come together and decide how we're going to prioritize our funding and create these beds. And, we gained something and we lost something when we deinstitutionalized in the mid-1980s.
Yes.
Obviously, one of the things we gained was more of a focus on community-based mental health services and try to emphasize a recovery model that enables individuals to be as functional as they can in the community. But what we lost were the safety net, the safe places for individuals who need the heavy resources of the state hospital. So somehow we're going to have to find a balance back and find some solution for individuals that are really in need of chronic residential treatment.
Is there any formal collaboration between your department and the new private company?
Well, there is.
A formal relationship, so that when somebody is released from jail, that is being seen by this private group. Now, it's in your ballpark. How do you even know about it?
Well, hopefully there's the usual channels by which they're going to call us up and refer individuals so we know who's coming in. And again, with the 5150s, we're training them on how to utilize those. The other player in all of this is County Council, who we work very closely with. The County Council keeps on track of individuals who are very severely mentally ill and going to be needing our service. Also, the public guardian who we work with is also very involved in the jail. So there are a number of agencies, and hopefully just over time we're going to develop as much open channels of communication for challenging cases so that we can keep the seamlessness of the continuum of care that you talked about.
Thank you.
Yes?
What's the future of opiate abuse?
And
Is there anything that's happening that's positive?
well, there are a couple things that we really want to build in terms of infrastructure. One is that we just need a good medical detox. And running low on time, right? Okay, so let me just mention that medical detox is something that we're going to hopefully build out in our new behavioral health campus when we move to the lake, so that we enable individuals who are dependent to get over the hump of acute withdrawal with the medical detox that they need to be able to do that. We're certainly very much in support of expanding maintenance strategies like Suboxone through the community health centers and methadone through the narcotic treatment programs like read than SRTP. And then, through DHS, Department of Health Services, we're just very invested in raising the awareness amongst providers throughout the county about the rises and dangers of providing opiates, and sending out guidelines about how to curb that problem. And it looks like I'm out of time.
Would you be able to stay after? There are a number of people that still may have some questions if you could stay after. But I do have a couple of things left to do. Oops. We have a drawing. Now, who did the tickets this morning? Nick. I don't have any tickets in the basket to draw.
There are no winners then. Everybody's in it. I know the number.
Oh, no.
Yeah, I bet. There were some spare tickets left on the table.
Part of the mess up the meeting thing.
Who's in charge of?
I don't know.
7820. Maybe it's somebody on 78. I have the ticket. 78.
It's all the scam to get your money.
Well, it looks like we'll postpone the raffle until next week. So,
It's a free one
What
next.
kind of president are you?
oh wait, never mind, it's just me. So, the joke of the day, way clean joke of the day, Pam Davis. Oh, okay. Well, Rod has
I got an email that said.
Excuse me, microphone please.
You're off the ball last week. This is a messed up meeting. You messed up your own mess.
Well, this is my mess up meeting, so I am truly messing up. Yeah.
All right. I don't know if we need another joke, but from the ridiculous to the sublime. Homer Simpson. Always be generous in the bedroom. Share your sandwich. And then William Butler Yeats, the Irish poet, commenting on a compatriot. Being Irish, he had an abiding sense of tragedy which sustained him through temporary periods of joy.
Thank you all for coming. This meeting is officially adjourned.
Trails to you until we